Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today I have the pleasure of revisiting a track I have not listened to in quite a long time from an act named PSY titled Gangnam Style. And if we switch over to here, this is more of my semi-morbid curiosity exploring tracks that I was into when I was younger, or at least that were quite famous when I was a bit younger, but I don't think I necessarily had an appreciation of at the time. Currently this track sits at about 5.8 billion views on YouTube, which is pretty incredible. We're good to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go, what have we got? See, instantly recognizable.
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자, 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자, 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자, 그런 반전 있는 여자.
When it helps with the audio visual experience is quite slick.
낮에는 너만큼 따사로운 그런 선어해, 커피 식기도 전에 원샷 때리는 선어해, 밤이 오면 심장이 터져버리는 선어해, 그런 선어해. 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너, 그래 바로 너. 아름다워 사랑스러워 그래 너.
Very used to the rise with there.
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Open Gangnam Style.
Great transfer to the toms.
Open Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. 정숙해 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 여자, 이때다 싶으면 묶었던 머리 푸는 여자, 가렸지만 웬만한 노출보다 야한 여자, 그런 감각적인 여자. 나는 선어해, 점잖아 보이지만 놀 땐 노는 선어해, 내가 되면 완전 미쳐버리는 선어해, 근육보다 사상이 울퉁불퉁.
I mean, it's so silly. You know, it's so much fun.
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Open Gangnam Style.
I mean, the synth lines are killer as well, though.
Open Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Open Gangnam Style. Sexy lady.
I forgot that it continued past this point.
Open Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Open Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Open Gangnam Style.
I mean, what's really special about it is that they don't like, I think that's the end of the track there, isn't it? It is what continues past that point. They have a dance off or something along those lines?
Open Gangnam Style.
Yeah, no, it's just really quite effective. It incorporates a lot of classic elements from the early 2010s, sort of EDM, sort of like, because there's a lot more electronic music and the pop stuff going on around that period there after the 2000s. Really sort of digging into the house grooves and sort of like chord note, 4/4 emphases and stuff. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Psy, titled Gangnam Style. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall analysis of everything from the vocals all the way through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? Honestly, I'm not familiar with the Korean language. I don't speak it. What I would sort of gather from the multi-audiovisual experience that we have here is that this is more so about Psy's appreciation of sexy lady, as well as simply having fun dancing, regardless of who you are, where you're at, not taking yourself too seriously, and just, just finding humor in things. I like how as we go through the video, you get more and more people involved in this. It just grows. It's almost like that airworm incorporates more and more people to the point where just you got everyone at the end there just having fun, having a good time, kind of going alongside with it. It is kind of an example of someone who has just a really interesting, neat idea, encouraging other people to sort of vibe with that and sort of, move on. And then to be fair, that was a huge thing. It was one of these songs that really did kind of break the internet a bit when it came out. It was so different to, I think, what a lot of people have listened to, especially those who are unfamiliar with Korean music, the K-pop stuff and everything like that. Though granted, there is sort of like the debate to be had in terms of how it kind of relates to a lot of, I've talked to people who were not happy about how Psy released this because I thought it kind of overshadowed a lot of other really cool K-pop at the time. Regardless of your perspective, though, that's kind of what I think this track's about without understanding the story verbatim or through the lyrics themselves. Psy's vocals are great. I like how charismatic he is. The rapping, the phrasing, the vocal parts there, the more sort of like sounds that he makes there. It's just a lot of fun. Oppa Gangnam Style. It's so authoritative and open and transparent in how he wants to sort of communicate. There are melodies that are sung as well as crowd chants and everything going on. Hey, sexy, again, they're really catchy hook lines. And so you have the rhythmic sort of like efficiency of the verse sections with the offbeats and onbeats, adjusting things a little bit to keep them sounding relatively fresh. That bridge section with the parallel majors as well is just kind of anthemic. And it's it's a really capable use of the verse bridge chorus formula. So you have a variety of different vocal styles. We are very sort of comfortable in hearing chest voice. Not a virtuosic sung performance, but nonetheless I don't think it needed to be. It wasn't the style back then, it just wasn't. There was a spoken, rapped, sung parts. It's more of a chant and celebration of the concept. And I think effectively, again, whether it was Psy themselves or the other overdubs, it was great. And again, I think part of what was watching the video, watching him in all the different situations he was in, that kind of helped to sort of elevate it further. Again, 5.8 billion views. Outside of the vocal performance, we simply have a track where I think that if I understand the track correctly in terms of what I've seen, the lyrics and vocals kind of match each other. I get it. To an extent. We have a piece where at 3 minutes 40 practically, because the last sort of dance outro section is extra to that, a little kind of ad-lib kind of like addition with the filtered. It's just cool to have a track that is so well structured and seamless in its transitions. It doesn't stay on the chorus just too long. It was potentially tempted to have had a double chorus at the end, but I'm glad that we had a shorter one so that we didn't overstay our welcome. They probably earned it. They could have potentially done extra leads on top, but no, they simply had these synths, these basses, these drums, these other vocal takes, these rises, other bits of really cool sort of concepts, and then they left. You had great use of filtering on the different instruments, as much a post-production as a composition thing, which made it sound more like a sort of like a dance track, and it allowed some themes that were repeated through the track to be experienced differently, and that made it more exciting. And again, great use of the filtering. It kind of sounded like someone was doing a DJ set with it. The synth lines, those synth leads are so bright and charming. They're so excited to be there. Bah, 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 bah. And they're so simple with their melodic ideas, but they don't need to be complicated. We're not doing a synth solo here. It's just reinforcing some of the root notes and bass lines and progressions that we have and trying to elevate them further. I think that inherently is a smart idea, but it's just, again, it's excited as the vocals are, even when they're trying to be a bit more low-key. I think the drums as well, they elevate and escalate things primarily because because of the chord note focus with those kicks, dum, dum, dum. But there's also some really neat hi-hat ideas there, working on the 8ths, but also on the offbeat 16ths. It's kind of cool. That kind of phrasing of it is just a bit more sort of lush sounding than if you'd primarily just focused on the quarters and 8ths. And then you had some tom fills as well there. We're exploring the full kit to make it a bit more kind of exciting and to diversify things. And I just feel like that was a sensible decision as well, because you just had that little kind of palette cleanse before the next round of things, before you switch to the claps, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that bridge section. And there's like less of a push forward until that chorus section where you get back into the 4 to the floor again. And there's even different rhythms with the snare fill rising up there alongside the synth rises there, and again the anthemic vocals there. We're really spoiling the listener. I think it cannot be understated how tight the actual composition and production was within this track. There's a lot to appreciate. In the second half of that verse, I think in others as well, you had the wow, wow, which is a different type of synth tone, but the portamento to it makes it sound kind of raunchy and fun. And it doesn't really commit to the diatonic the whole entire time. There's like a note where it kind of does almost a bluesy kind of thing, which just sounds kind of cool. But it's so tight with the mixing that everything is experienced almost equally, despite the fact that there are clear adjustments to how things are put forward. There's headroom in the piece despite how loud it is. And I think a lot of the bass in that chorus section, you know, despite all the kind of interesting things we've discussed, really, the bass isn't as literal. It's almost like it's a part of that boom, 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 boom. The bass is inherent to that, so the kicks click really neatly. There might be an 808, but it's so relatively subtle that it's hard to tell. I think that almost ironically makes it more exciting because the bass hits a sometimes sting. It's not too constant because of a lack of that consistency with the bass tone. It kind of wow, the way it's filtered, it just it's just comes in and out there, and you know it's awesome. And I think that's actually an organ, isn't it? Dun 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 dun. And it's that organ is sort of experienced in different ways. There's tails and cooler responses with the haze and the bridge parts, and that's kind of exciting. I do dig that we're trying to express instruments differently in different parts to sort of like just explore the possibilities. Because like in that range, it has plenty of room to breathe. There's nothing being choked within it compositionally or octave-wise or pitch-wise. What I dig as well is with the interlude section is that it's like in the antithesis of a lot of what we had before, where it's quite brazen. It comes down almost like you're trying to have more of an intimate conversation with the person, that the lady that he was kind of approaching in that second verse or the second bridge. And I think that's smart. When you have all this kind of heaviness there, you can use the filter thing just to, again, express it in a different way, and the listener will pay more attention because it's like, oh, why is it suddenly gone quiet like this? Are we building up to something different? But it's not too alien. You know, so you appreciate when it rises back up for that big finish, and you know you're hitting into something kind of neat. And I think I just want to also comment on some of the pregnant pauses that we've had at the end of some of these sort of bridge parts. That big build that we have, that crescendo, then there's Oppa Gangnam Style, and then when you just go boom, smack into it. It's playing with the listener's expectations a little bit. It's creating this kind of weird tension, which is very comfortable. It's like, it's not definitely, it's a great song to listen to, but it's also, and I say that unironically as well, I genuinely appreciate the musicality of this piece. But yeah, just allowing there to be space for the record start, and then the hook line, and then boom, you're in. And that big finish with the with everyone kind of like ending it like that was just dramatic. That final push and dum, and everyone came together for Gangnam Style and Happy Days. So you explore each of these things instrumentally. I don't think there's another place for the production, the performance itself, should I say. Thematically, I think that it's minor leaning, but I don't think it's a sad kind of minor leaning. It's just meant to sound kind of slick and cool and exciting. It's that kind of nightclubish kind of minor where you're actually just kind of grooving along to it. It's bright enough to sort of invigorate you and to want you to sort of like fly along with it. It has that parallel major that I talk about as a third chord in the build sections, primarily to illustrate, I think, a lack of darkness within this piece. It's just trying to be suave, and I think that it flies between a lack of cheesiness but not being too sort of dire extremely effectively. if for nothing but the actual combination of the different vocal, I presume the lyrical and the instrumental elements within the piece. And again, the use of blues scales and some of the lead lines is really neat. Honestly, there's just a lot of fun ideas, as well as the vocals being non-melodic at times and then melodic in others, and adding to the overall coloration of the piece. And a deliberate lack of, again, the filtering of things to make them more subdued in other parts is cool. Studio recording, mixing and mastering, very, very happy with that. No complaints whatsoever in terms of how the vocals, the different synth lines, the bass, drums, the claps, all the different layers, the risers, the synth textures, etc. Very, very cool. Very, very effective. To me, I think that you didn't need to do more of what we've done with this. We had the filtering and the deliberate resonances in the low and high end there to rise, make the track seem like it's more low key, rise up. But there were no weird resonant frequencies outside of that. They clearly know how to EQ their instruments and not overproduce the vocals. I liked how the vocals are spread around the stereo field, the music's around you in the headphones. It was very exciting to listen to. And like things went backwards and forwards there, and they weren't afraid to again have that dynamic range there. The track was nice and loud and it pumped because of the side chaining, but there are also moments where it was different, and I love when there's dynamic range in tracks. I think as I do more of these reviews, I really appreciate when we're not afraid to have that changes in loudness, you know, whether perceived or literal. Honestly, no applicable constructive critique for me. The production is very strong within this one, and from a final general listener's perspective, I as a person who sees this in retrospect, I can both understand why it was so incredibly successful, and I think today I've gained a newfound appreciation for it. I love the intent behind this. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the track is about, but there's this kind of playfulness that I think is potentially missing in a lot of music nowadays, where it takes itself too seriously, and I kind of miss when times were fun. And I hope to hear more music like this as I continue to explore music from this period and kind of understand it better. But I'm glad I had the chance to check through it again today and relive a bit of nostalgia, I suppose. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an act named Psy, titled Gangnam Style. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SB reviews. Spiderhands out.